Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous female left behind a forward-moving spouse with a bomb drop of January 2020 and a start of relationship of 1995. She has a low-energy wallower who is a clinging boomerang, but is becoming more distant possibly. She says he's a depressed wallower who lives at his parents'. Our relationship started in 1995 and there weren't any major red flags. We lived a typical married life. We have 3 children. Our daughter is 15 and we have a son 14 and a 7-year-old son. They all have many activities, and in the last 3.5 years we've been intimate many times. We see each other basically every day. He sees me at our sporting events. He sits next to me. He travels with us when we have travel to baseball games, and he doesn't monster very much either. In recent months, he's asked that we not be intimate anymore so he can clear his head. I understand that. That was kind of something responsible for him to do. He said it so he could clear his head. I get it. Then he started to be a bit colder. That might be part of the natural process of an increasing depression. It could also be the lack of intimacy and the hormones that went with it were keeping the bonding going. Okay. But depression, this is depression. He started to be a bit colder, more forgetful, and implied that our kids don't think he contributes financially. It's a big spending time with school and some sports starting up. My son tried to ask him to buy something, and he said, "Mom can take you for that tomorrow." My son said, "No, she's bought a lot." And he went crazy. I had to sit down the kids and explain our financial agreement. So first, I want to make sure you do have some sort of a financial agreement. I want you to ask your son, "Son, are you worried about Mom?" Instead, address it in a different way. Are you worried about Mom? Not that it's unfair or not, but are you worried that we don't have the money? Find the root cause of it. For your son saying, "Mom's bought a lot," because that might be very true. And is there really an agreement? And is the agreement fair? Forget what your son is saying, but is it fair? And your kids just don't see that. And then point out to your husband, maybe some truth darts about the unfairness, if it is unfair. Or that it's not that it's unfair, honey, but what other people see of it appears to be unfair. It makes it what is shown publicly. And publicly is to your kids, even though they live behind the closed doors. So they don't see it. Did talking about the agreement help with your kids in understanding? Or are you just making excuses? And then point out to your husband, you know what? I think our son is just worried financially. And he's worried about that he seems to feel that I'm overburdened. And so rather than thinking that he's accusing you of not doing so much, is maybe think that he's worried about me. Just some different ways and angles of looking at it, different attitudes, because attitudes are angles of looking at something. His communication is getting worse, and I'm not sure what to do. I'm basically practicing smart contact, but I'm wondering if it's time to try no contact. I was thinking of dropping the kids off at his parents', and he can drop them at home later without coming in. No sitting together at sporting events, but I still do a family calendar, and I'm not sure what else. Can you give me some advice? And I want to add that he's been trying to do more with the kids, but he uses my knowledge of what they like and don't like when planning. Well, that's fair. A husband who is at home and not in a midlife crisis, or whichever spouse knows the kids better, is more attentive in that way or detail-oriented, might do that anyway. Just like when somebody calls you up and says, what should I get them for their birthday? What do they like? So I see that piece as normal, and it's not unfair that he uses that, especially if he has that contact with you. So should you go no contact, or should you go dimmer or dark? What I think you might want to try is a limited no contact in the beginning. Usually we use limited no contact as, "Please don't contact me. I need a break for so many weeks." When we go no contact later, it is often for inappropriate behavior. And so you might want to try something as saying, "You know what? I don't want him to be punished. being angry, and I don't want him to feel like his feelings are wrong. Same as I don't want to feel that way with a child. We stifle feelings and then they simmer inside. We don't get to let them out, and it makes them worse. So I don't want him to feel that the feelings are wrong. Maybe the interpretation of them sometimes, but having a feeling. And so I don't want him to be punished for his feelings, but I want him to know that what he is doing with them and interpreting and how he is then treating others is inappropriate rather than wrong. And maybe instead of saying, you know what, I need a break, validate his need for taking a break from intimacy and saying, you know what, several months ago you asked for this break. And maybe we either need to expand that break and take a little bit more of a break from each other, or we do the opposite. How's that working for you? Because has some of that break been what's caused greater distance? Because you don't have the physical intimacy, which does help with hormones. Or, because I don't have a problem with that break, I get it. Or should you take a little bit more of a break and say, you know what, I think maybe you need a little bit more of a break to figure yourself out, and then validate that it's okay. It's okay. I'm not going anywhere, but do you need some kind of a retreat? Just a break, where maybe it's a break from spending so much time together. Or maybe even do you need a week's vacation where you're gone from all of us? Can he do a literal retreat? Or 3. I said a week vacation because usually vacations aren't 3 weeks and that's a long time away from the kids. But I would start with a 3-week apart where you don't have to have, where your contact is emergency contact if you're going to do this. It is not the normal limited no contact I do. In the beginning, I usually do limited no contact when the anxiety for you is so great and the mixed messages and you're unable to heal. Right now, I just want you to take a test because you're wondering. And I don't know if it's the right answer. But that's why we test these things, because in one situation it is the right answer and the other it isn't. We don't know until we try. The other thing that I want you and everybody to know, we have this idea of low energy wallower. We have this idea of depression as sad. And sure, that may be very much a part of depression. But one of the major things about depression is simmering anger. They are often very angry, but they're not as volatile in a physical and overt way with their anger. And volatile could be just acting out with high energy. It doesn't mean mean and physical in their volatility. It doesn't have to mean bullying. It can. But my husband Chuck was high energy, and his high energy wasn't usually mean. It was more taunting. So he would try to get me on his side or taunt and tease about the alienator. But that was also part of his trying to maintain a connection to me. And then he cycled occasionally, but I didn't get a lot of standard monster. That was mean monster. So you can have simmering anger from either a high or a low energy, or you can have something that doesn't appear to be angry. But we don't think of low energy as angry, and a lot of them are. Maybe most of them are, but our idea of what it is isn't that, and so it surprises us. What is wrong with him? And yeah, there's something wrong with them, with the midlife crisis, but I want you to understand that the anger is part of it. It's the normal thing that you experience as a low energy wallower. And not only that, we talk about cycling, and that is not the same as moods. Cycling, when I talk about it, it's usually they're being nice, not because they're in a good mood, but they want to connect, reconnect, touch and go, anchor check. They're sending mixed messages because they're confused. And I hate you, I love you. Changing their mind about what they want to do, even though they changed it an hour ago. And moods will affect that. But sometimes the cycling can be bigger than a mood. But sometimes you're seeing an angry person one day and a sad person next because they're in a different mood, not because they're cycling about what they want with their life. And remember, they still don't know what they want with their life, and they're confused and they're trying to figure themselves out. But sometimes we just have different moods. And so you might have an angry Emil Cyr one day and a sad Emil Cyr another day. Getting used to someone who is depressed can be tricky because it's not going to be the same every day. And it's not just because of the mixed messages. So understanding what depression is might be helpful. And that it's just not about sad. So should you keep this family calendar? I love that. Yeah. Family calendar is great. I want you to test this. And I want you to not just test it and tell him what's going to happen. When we set a boundary, we tell them the rules. I don't want this to be a boundary yet. It might be a light boundary, but I would rather have this be something that is discussed, if that's something you can do. And then you're approaching him rooted with empathy that I think maybe you need a little bit of a break. And I think this is something that is important for all of us. And it can maybe help you. Maybe you and I are seeing too much of each other. And then see if he backs off from that or not. See if he feels relieved. See if he feels scared. And if he does feel scared, you add the reassurance. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here. I'm suggesting this because I think it might help you, not because I'm upsetting you. So all of those reassurance, you wrap all of this in that. He's becoming more distant. He's depressed. If you still have any right of spouse or right of wife, what rights does he give you to suggest therapy, to suggest, and maybe not therapy, but medical intervention for any depression, or is he resistant to all of that? And where are his parents in this? He's living at home with his parents. What do they feel about it? Are they completely on our baby's home and she's over there? Or do you have a good relationship with them? Are they concerned about him? Do they recognize this as depression also? In other words, who do you have that's in support of the marriage that is also in support of him, that can help with any intervention type of things, to just mildly saying, honey, we're worried about you. And you might not have that. That might just increase your resistance. But all of this is going to be testing. Okay? So let me know if you have any more questions regarding this. And I will see everybody in the next question.